Welcome to CyberSessions by CIISec. This episode is about CIISec people development. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, I'm Simon Rycroft. I'm CEO at Cyber Risk Management Group, and today we're talking about professional development and how the Chartered Institute of Information Security plays a big role in cyber. Now, I'm joined by Luke and by Kevin. Let's do some quick intros first. So, Kevin, to you first.
So, hello. As Kevin Streater, Vice President of Knowledge Delivery at ForgeRock, which is a digital identity software company. And I've been in the cyber skills world for the best part of 25 years now.
And Luke.
Hi, I'm Luke Beeson. I'm Chair of the Chartered Institute of Information Security. I'm also Group CISO at Aviva.
So we're in exalted company because both of you are actually board members. Now, we are going to be talking about some acronyms today. You can't escape it when we're talking about institutes and education programs and career journeys. So let's have a little bit of fun to start with. Let's do some acronym bingo, and you can help me clear something up to start, because I think I've been getting this wrong for the last 3 years. Is it CIISec or is it CIISec?
CIISec.
CIISec.
Yeah.
We've decided. We
didn't practice that.
I have been getting it wrong for the last 3 years. Right. ADP.
Associate Development Programme.
Well done. EPQ.
It's the Extended Project Qualification.
And FDP.
Full Member Development Programme.
Fantastic.
Well done, Luke.
I think it would be nice to hear a little bit about your own journeys into the cybersecurity profession, because I think it firstly can be somewhat inspirational. Also, it's a nice context for our chat. So, Kevin, tell us a little bit about how you got into cyber.
So I actually started in cybersecurity when I was doing my A-levels. I got a sponsorship through university from National Physics Laboratory. We've actually had a CIISec event there.
I was there last year at the Innovation Summit.
And I was placed into the data security group. And the first thing I had to do was learn about public key encryption and cryptography and writing algorithms. And I was like, that was a great place to start in the industry. Ended up working as a programmer for a couple of years after a computer science degree, and then fell into Sun Microsystems early stage in my career and specialised in security software. So I've been involved in security and software for a very long time. Took some time out to go to the Open University to learn how to sort of build a business around skills, and then came back into the vendor world with ForgeRock. So jumped between academia and commercial, but always around security, always around skills, always around software. But no sort of planned career, but always touching security.
Thanks, Kevin. There's a word, passion, and it's overused in my view, way too much. And just for observing your journey and how you represent CIISec, got it right. I think that passion comes out when you're talking about supporting people's career journeys and the work that you've done to develop that over the years. Tell us about your story then, Luke.
Yeah, I took much longer than Kevin to discover the wonders of cybersecurity. So I took an engineering degree at Bristol University. I then joined Honeywell, a big engineering conglomerate. Did some proper engineering, as I call it, so some software development. But realised quite quickly that I didn't want to necessarily be pigeonholed as an engineer or a software developer. At the time, BT were running a tremendous scheme where they were picking up graduates with 2 or 3 years of experience in industry, and that gave me an opportunity to spin around lots of different departments in BT. So I got some experience of different, some finance experience, some operations experience, and some different types of business activity. And then I ended up in BT Security, which is a fantastic place that does a lot of work from critical national infrastructure through to private companies. But I was asked to try and tackle the challenge of cable theft. So in cable theft, yeah. So in about 2011, copper prices were through the roof, and there was a huge spate of metal theft. So it wasn't just BT's copper cables, but the railways were losing their signal cables, the churches, the mosques, the temples were losing their lead flashing. And so I got a group of people together, and we ended up lobbying government between us to have a new Scrap Metal Dealer Act. So there's now a 2013 Scrap Metal Dealer Act which outlaws the exchange of metal for cash, because that was obviously the perfect crime for the criminals. They could just pick up a bit of metal and get cash from a scrap dealer. Now you have to provide identity, and you get a check or you get a bank transfer, so there's auditability in that. So just an amazing and weird kind of route into physical security. And then from there I got a great opportunity to work on the 2012 London Olympics, and that was my first kind of foray into information security. Then did more things in BT around information security, and about 6 years ago joined Aviva to be their UK CISO, and more recently their group CISO.
So you talked about an amazing and wacky route into security, albeit physical at that point. I was in my kitchen at the weekend with my sister-in-law, and I was telling her about this podcast coming up, and she said, "Ooh, are you going to talk about the squiggly career?" So I thought, okay, I better do a bit more work here. So anyway, so Times #1 bestseller, business, Helen Tupper and Sarah Ellis. Here's a synopsis. I think this is really useful context for the discussion. They say, "Today we're living in a world of squiggly careers where moving frequently and fluidly between roles, industries, locations, and even careers is becoming the new normal. Squiggly careers can feel stressful and overwhelming, but if you know how to make the most of them, they can be full of opportunity, freedom, and purpose. And to make the most of our increasingly squiggly careers, we need to answer some important questions. What am I good at? What do I stand for? What motivates and drives me? Where do I want to go in the future?" So, Kevin, talk to me a little bit about how the Chartered Institute supports the squiggly career.
I think it's how I got involved in professional bodies in the first place. Was the professional bodies have been the bedrock of my career everywhere I've gone. Broad professional bodies like British Computer Society, more specialists like CIISec with security, but they give a really solid foundation to how do you develop your own career. And then it allows you the freedom that they're talking about in squiggly careers, that you get to understand what you're good at. You get to understand what you would like to develop next. And that's how professional bodies are there to just help keep people developing and learning new skills and getting exposure to new technologies, or coming to events like CIISec Live where you get to see what's going on in the industry. But you've always got to have somewhere to go back to where you know you're going to have a home that will help you progress.
And how do you square this up, Luke, against the traditional pathway where someone's coming in from maybe a STEM background? Where do you sit on the ladder versus squiggly?
I think you need a balance, right? I think so. Obviously I've come from a STEM background. I'm a huge advocate of STEM careers, particularly to generate a more diverse talent pipeline. So we want to encourage people from more diverse backgrounds into STEM careers, because that's been a problem traditionally. But I think when you get into the world of cyber, we need to be very careful about people who think it's just a technical discipline. It's far from it. One of the things I love about my role is I often say it's where current affairs meets technology. So not only do you need to understand the technology, but you also need to have a good grasp of current affairs and what's going on in the world around and about us, because ultimately our adversaries, those who are out to attack us, have all sorts of weird and wonderful motives, and you need to have an appreciation of that. So to defend against that, we need a really diverse group of individuals to do that. I remember having the privilege of going inside the donut, inside GCHQ, and I was immediately struck by the diversity of the people that I saw working in there, and I just thought that was fantastic and obvious and logical when you think it through. And I think we've got a bit of work to do in the private sector to mirror that. And so I think we want people in the career, in the profession who've had wide and varied careers, and I obviously want people from a STEM background because we need that technical foundation, technical grounding, but we also need people who've got psychology backgrounds who can start to understand some of the motives and the rationale for what the attackers are doing. We need great communicators. We need a whole raft of skills and capability, and that's why it's such an exciting profession, I think, because it isn't just one-dimensional, it is multi-dimensional. And when I think about my role as a CISO, the demands that are put on me and the questions that I'm asked come from all sorts of backgrounds and perspectives. So I think that's an interesting one that we could explore.
Let's come back to the role of the CISO in a few minutes, if we may. So we talked about the importance of diversity from a business perspective, different views on maybe risk, different areas of business activity, different backgrounds, not necessarily from a STEM background. We're all talking about diversity, equity, the neurodivergent, inclusivity. How do we get that to a place where we're living and breathing, harnessing the value of those profiles of people, rather than attending conferences where it's a tick in the box and having a speaker talking about neurodivergent and accommodations, for example, Kevin?
I like to try and think about, I always think about skills. It's like, how do we give people as much opportunity, no matter who they are, where they are, and anything. It's sort of where the cyber EPQ started from, was I loved the idea of somebody sitting on a Scottish island with no access to anything other than the internet, being able to study cyber.
Not too far from where I live, actually.
But also making that accessible. So we're currently looking at a school wants to bring people who are blind into doing a project. Well, it's a written project. How do we make that accessible? Well, we've got ways of doing that. All forms of diversity and inclusion is on the spectrum for bringing people into the industry. So we need to think every time we're producing an offering, how do we make it as inclusive as possible? And that's not necessarily been the foundation of sort of a lot of practice of professional bodies, but it's something that, particularly if we're going to bring people from as diverse a background as possible into cyber, we really do have to think about.
And in the context of Aviva, Luke, how do you live and breathe that theme and really harness the contribution, the different contribution in some cases that people with different backgrounds can bring?
Yeah, and it's a huge focus in Aviva, right? But I would say we've still got a long way to go on this journey. We are starting to see, myself and my leadership team are very deliberately focused in on this. So what we're doing is we're creating different entry points. And I think that's an interesting way to look at it, because traditionally in a big corporation, you would have had a large intake of graduates who, guess what, have had the privilege of education, have typically had a more privileged background, and come into a big corporate where they know what's going on. Their parents may have worked in big corporations, so you're reinforcing, if you like, that bias. So we've tried to tackle it at the entry point level. So we're now doing a lot with T-level placements, which is fantastic. We're running summer internships from local colleges near our offices. We're supporting the Cyber Apprentice scheme, which again brings in a more diverse group of entrants into the profession. And we do still have some graduates coming in. And another area we focused on is actually returners, so people who've had time out of work, men or women, but usually women who've typically had some time off work having children, and encourage them to come back in and have a look at cyber as an entry point into Aviva. So, and what is great when you look at those pathways is you definitely do see more diverse group of people, right? And so it's early days, and I would never, I would say we've got to do a lot more, and we've got to keep talking about it and keep focusing on it, keep making interventions. But we are seeing some green shoots, and we're definitely seeing when I look at, we had an all-team event actually this week, and I look out into the audience, and it is definitely becoming a more diverse audience, and even just in the 6 years that I've been in Aviva.
And how about what you do within the information security and cyber function to spot different capabilities, maybe elsewhere in the business, and maybe encourage them to get involved and either contribute to what you're doing?
There's a couple of things actually, and we've got some real examples of this. So we talk a lot, so on the negative side, we talk a lot often in security teams about the business. So what's the business, right? It's our business. What's the logo on the payslip that you get? Well, my payslip has an Aviva logo, so it's my business. It's our business as a security team, and we're supporting it to grow securely. So what I'm saying there is that we need to be better at speaking the language of the business, recognising that it is our business, and we're simply there to support it to grow securely. And so we've brought a number of people across from customer-facing teams into my security team, and they've been a breath of fresh air, and they've brought that perspective that we need to be customer-centric, we need to support the customer in what we're doing, and ultimately it's about securing the customer's data. And I think you can get a bit removed from that in a security team who tucked away in the depths of technology. So that's been really good, and people have been quite inspired by that actually. And I think the individuals who've come across, and obviously it's for them to say, but my perception is that they've really enjoyed it, and it's given them, it's made them realise that they've got skills that maybe they didn't think they had, that's great to see as well.
And conversely, we were having a chat in our pre-recording discussion, and you were saying how frustrated you get with how information security, cybersecurity people talk about, we've got to speak the language of the business, we've got to interface with the business. Just talk about that a little bit.
Which I just think using the phrase "the business" immediately puts a division between you and your colleagues, and I'd much rather say our business, not the business, our business. And we need to work with our colleagues to understand their business challenges and how we can help them achieve those challenges in a secure way. So I think cybersecurity teams, CISO teams, are simply support functions, and we're here to understand what the business is trying to achieve and allow it to follow the most secure path to achieve that.
Yes. Kevin, can we talk a bit more specifically about the role that the Chartered Institute plays and what it has to offer for people, whether they are a squiggly career person or whether they're more a traditional ladder career type person, whether they're a one-man band trying to get into cyber, or whether they're sitting within, I don't know, business risk function in Aviva. What does the landscape look like?
I think we try and think about it in a number of steps. So there are people that are looking to come into the industry, so coming in from schools. So we've got programs specifically at that early stage. So things like the Cyber EPQ is something you can do alongside A-levels. Doesn't matter what background you're coming from, whether it's STEM, could be any discipline. It gives you a taster of cyber so that you can come in. But then as you go through, you may go into apprenticeships, you may go to university, you need some support as you're getting into your first role. Specifically, if you're getting into a cyber business, then you need some support to know what is the breadth of cyber. So that's where things like the Associate Development Programme come in, so that they can give you access to the whole range of things that are covered in cyber. You may only get an option in your workplace to focus on one topic or one domain. But actually, to be a really good, broad cyber specialist, you need to know about everything.
And that programme is available to corporate members,
Corporate members of CIISec. And specifically to give their new entrants the opportunity to learn about the whole industry. Obviously, once you've done that, you're then in your career, you're a cyber specialist. And you may be looking for a promotion, you may want to move to a different sector, but you've still got to know a bit more about the industry. And some of the things like professionalism come up as topics, and engaging with senior staff, and just thinking, as Luke's saying, think about what's the value of the business. So that's where the full member development program comes in. It gives you exposure to people that are in those roles already and gives you insight into what they're thinking so that you can start developing those same skills. So again, it's something the Chartered Institute can provide that then allows you to move forward in your career. And then we've got things like chartership is now coming in, and we're also looking at a CISO development program, so that if you're now looking to go to your third or fourth role and you need to understand what a CISO experience is, then again, Chartered Institute can come in and support you there. So the idea is to have building blocks that you can just keep coming back and say, okay, I'm ready for my next move. Have you got a program that can help me? Yes, that's what a Chartered Institute is there for.
And that's an important point, isn't it? Because the amazing people at the Chartered Institute are always happy to talk about what might be the right or the most relevant pathway for you, given in mind the resources that are available through the Institute at that point in time.
And that's where we use, it's like the CIISec skills framework underpins all of this, so that you can just look at it and say, actually, it's like my specialist area at the moment is identity, but you may find a lot of people don't know about the identity domain. Well, actually, come and listen to a talk I give to the ADP or the FDP program about what's identity about, what's consumer identity about. They may never have come across it, but you get to hear from experts in the field so that you've got some knowledge and you can take that forward as you're looking at future roles.
And then presumably similarly, for those the people that do have a little bit of security knowledge and maybe they've looked at CISSP or maybe they've looked at ISO 27001 or the NIST cybersecurity framework, presumably in the skills framework and the knowledge framework as well, there's going to be stuff they recognise that's largely equivalent.
Yep. And part of the work I'm doing at the moment is to try and orientate people from all these different frameworks and things they might have seen in their organisation and put a little bit of structure around it so you can say, okay, how do I orientate myself to where I am? What do I know? What am I good at? And it actually comes back to the squiggly careers. It's understanding the things you're good at, but also looking at what do you need to find out more about, because that's probably a key to your next career move. And that's where the Institute can come in again.
I think we forget how new the cyber profession is, or the information security profession, right? We haven't been a profession for that long. When you think about accountants or lawyers or doctors or even IT professionals have been around longer than cybersecurity professionals. So I think we shouldn't beat ourselves up too much. And I think having that home for the profession is another really helpful thing. And it sounds a bit trite, but it is important somewhere, as Kevin said, somewhere you can come back to and speak to some friendly people who've got some experience and give you some guidance. I think that's really key, because we're forging a lot of new ground here, and the technology domain is advancing so quickly that it's okay not to know something. And
Completely.
I think that's important, right?
Yeah. When I first started in this profession, 28 years ago, and I was working for a large professional services firm at the time, we were hosting work groups with information security people. But they were an evolution of your traditional IT techie that was perceived by the rest of the business as sitting in a cupboard somewhere, doing stuff that no one really understood in a very uncontrolled way. And the profession was really finding its feet at that stage, and it's progressed massively in the time since, sometimes thanks to the evolution of standards. But it's about an evolution of mindset and positioning in the business as well, isn't it? So, Luke, talk to us a little bit about what you think makes for a good CISO, because irrespective of whether you're a squiggly person or a ladder person, ultimately you've probably got that role in mind.
Yeah, I think increasingly the demands on a CISO are becoming broader and broader, and I think it's not necessarily about a ladder career. I think it can be achieved through a ladder career, but I think equally, and I would encourage people who've had a squiggly career to really consider a career in cyber, because I think that variety of background, as I said, and that variety of perspective will be invaluable. And I was talking to somebody just this week about the fact that in the future they feel that really a CISO will probably have needed to run a P&L, profit and loss account, so properly run a business. Because then, only then can they really start to get in and understand the threats and vulnerabilities and the issues that organisation might face. So, yeah, I think it's all to play for, and I think the role of CISO is still really as well, a bit like profession, is still being defined and developing and growing, and it depends organisation by organisation. But it's interesting, because when you look at a chief financial officer or a chief people officer or a chief marketing officer, they feel like quite well-defined roles. I think the chief security officer is still quite varied across different organisations. You know, some chief security officers will have physical security in their remit, some will have operational resilience, some won't, some will have fraud. So there's a whole variety of chief security officers or chief information security officers. And there's also a whole variety of reporting lines. I mean, that's a whole debate that rages in the profession about where the chief information security officer should report into. So there's a lot, I think, still to settle.
There's a common theme, though, isn't there? And that's an understanding of risk, surely. Yeah. And how that is understood, how it's translated from board level down and then enunciated throughout the business.
I was going to say, it's something that I'm very aware of in all of the development programs that CIISec's got, that right at the very early stage, there are some fundamental principles like just understanding risk, that even if that's all we manage to teach them in school, doing the cyber EPQ, just that appreciation that risk is an important part of life is really important. And how to just think about it. And then introduce a few of the things around sort of just the threat landscape. And so even at A level, sorry, this is something that sits alongside an A-level, but introducing some of these fundamental concepts right at the beginning, so that if you do want to have a career that goes all the way through, you've got the principles. And I guess going back to what I said in my introduction, that's what I learned at National Physics Laboratory early on, is there's some fundamental principles that really, if you learn them early, they can keep you going through your entire career, because they're fundamental to the whole cyber domain. But it is a business-orientated domain. You're protecting people, you're protecting valuable assets. You've got to know about these things. You've got to understand the value of individuals and of the things they've got. So it's built into all of the development programs specifically.
And there's a point there that I probably shouldn't make as chair of the Trust.
Oh, go on, make it anyway.
But learning about risk and appreciating what risk is, guess what? That's hugely transferable across all the other domains, right? So I know we're trying to attract people into the cyber profession and develop people within that profession, but actually, so I suppose the point I'm trying to make is you won't lose anything by investing some time early on in your career or in your learning development, looking at risk and understanding risk, because that is needed everywhere, right? In every domain.
It's also a really key thing in cyber is we're never going to fill the cybersecurity skills shortage with people coming out of schools, universities, apprenticeships. We have to have people transferring into the industry. And one of the key things to identify is people that can understand the risk in a business, all those transferable skills, and then build on that and say, well, we can actually teach you the rest of it.
There are disciplines as well, though, aren't there? Not yes, I mean, risk is probably a common thread through all of this, but there was an event I chaired recently, and one of the speakers there had come into cyber, and her background was in knowledge management. Her real passion as a child was librarianship. Yeah. Well, guess what she was really good at? Information classification. Yeah. And that's an area that we know many businesses are really bad at doing consistently. And she got a passion for this, and she was making great strides in that area in the business she was working in. So I think what we're saying is that irrespective of what motivates you to get into cyber, where you are in your career, what you studied, what you look like, how you think, in a way, doesn't matter. None of that matters in a sense, because there's a journey for you. And the Chartered Institute is there to help you find the right path through all that and to help you succeed.
Absolutely.
Great. Gentlemen, Luke, Kevin, thank you very much. So I've been Simon Rycroft.
And I've been Kevin Streater.
And I've been Luke Beeson.
You've been listening to a CIISec video podcast. See you next time.